started?
I think we're good to go.
Excellent. All righty. So I'm going to go ahead and share our screen. We do have a little bit of a presentation to go with here. And when I go into presentation mode, you'll be able to see myself and Siobhan, hopefully on your right side or wherever you move your box. That will allow you, I guess, to see us presenting while we are talking. So I will formally introduce myself. My name is Ryan Padgett. I'm the Assistant Vice President for Enrollment and Student Success here at NKU. I've been at NKU. It's coming upon 9 years. And so absolutely love it and enjoy it. Grew up originally in the Cincinnati area, so I'm very familiar with this area. I jokingly say I worked my way across the Big Ten through my education, headed over to South Carolina for a while to work. But like most Cincinnatians, I found my way back home. So it's a joy and a pleasure to be here with you this evening. So I'll turn it over to Siobhan to introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Siobhan Ryan Perry. I am the alcohol and other drug clinician in our health counseling and student wellness office. I have been here at NKU. I believe I just finished my 10th year here, so I can't believe it's been 10 years. They always say, you never work a day in your life if you love what you do, and I love what I do and love working with students, so those 10 years have just flown by. I am not from this area. I was born and raised in Ireland, came to the U.S. as a young woman, still young, but younger woman. So I am a first generation. I am an immigrant. I am a single parent. And so I fully understand a lot of the students that we engage with and a lot of the parents that we also consult with. I live here in Cincinnati with my 4 wonderful children, and I'm currently pursuing my doctoral degree. So I, like you, I'm quite busy.
And you're going to have 3 more letters to put behind your name here soon. So
yes, I joke and say that's all my student loans.
Well, we do, again, to all the parents and family members who are joining us this evening, we do appreciate you taking the time out. We know everybody's busy, and for many of us that are on computers and Zoom all day, an additional hour can be a little bit much. And so, but we are so, again, glad to have you here as we have some conversations around how we can continue to support your student. So the program tonight is titled Stronger Together. And the reason for that is we believe in the communication as well as the partnership between the parents and family members and then the NKU faculty and staff to work together to make sure we're supporting your students. And so, again, really the idea for this evening's presentation and this workshop is we're going to cover some things that we feel like you need to know right now as we are in week 6 of the fall semester, which is crazy to think because it just seems like it just started yesterday. And so we're going to hit on some key things that you should know now. And then Siobhan's going to take about 15 or 20 minutes and have an honest conversation around some of the things your students may be experiencing, either physically, mentally, socially, both inside and outside the classroom. Some of those conversations can be difficult to hear, but it's important because obviously as we're supporting your student throughout this process, it's important that we're honest with ourselves and we're very transparent in making sure we're able to support our students in a number of different ways. And so Siobhan will be opening that conversation up, and then I'll be wrapping it up at the end with some key things to take away from this presentation and some things you need to know right now. One of the things then we will do is we tend to leave about 15 to 20 minutes at the end of this presentation for any questions that you may have, but we strongly encourage you, if you have a question during the presentation or you have a question you want to make sure it gets answered, to please feel free to, again, to go into the chat. For those that are familiar with Zoom, you just go to if you hover over the bottom, you will see the chat box there. You click on that, the chat box should open up on your right side, and you'll be able to answer any address any questions that you will have. Please type it in there. We'll be following along through the presentation, and if it's timely, we can bring it up at that time. That's great. If not, we will make sure we wait till the end to address it. And again, if we don't get to all the questions, because we will end again at 7, we will make sure to follow up with everybody with this presentation and answers to those questions. So with that, I think we'll go ahead and get started as my dog continues to jump to my right side and is starting to bark. So if we hear that, the joys of Zoom, right? All righty. So what we want to kind of start out with is kind of the importance of your role as parents and family members. A lot of, we jokingly say all the time, once they turn 18 and head to college, you're turning their bedrooms into, kind of lounge areas or sewing rooms, whatever it may be. But what we have found over the last decade, and especially more recently, even though they have moved on from 17, 18-year-olds into 18, 19, 20-year-olds, the role of the family member during college is very, very strong. So this is some data that we actually asked students about 5 or 6 years ago, and it still holds up today. We asked them before they actually got to college. So this is first-year students. Before they were even stepping foot on campus for their fall semester, who do you primarily expect will influence you more academically? So again, the key word there, academically. As you can see, it was pretty much even. Before college, incoming students thought they're going to be their faculty or their instructor, and then their parents and family members. And so we then took this exact same question. Instead of saying, who do you primarily expect will influence you before college, we said, who primarily influenced you after your first semester? And what you can see is that big jump over to parents and family members. And what we learned from a number of interviews and some table interviews that we had with students is they continued to share that they relied heavily on their family members, not just for advice, but even going back to them saying, hey, I'm really confused in some of this coursework. Can you help me out? And so for maybe some parents who maybe didn't take organic chemistry or biology, or it's been a few years since you took those courses, that can be a little bit intimidating. And so we're going to talk about how the resources we have on campus to make sure you're helping your student make those connections so that they have that support in that classroom. We asked a similar question, again, similar survey before and then after the first semester. If you have an academic related issue or concern, so again, maybe they're struggling in a course or just have a concern of some sort academically, who did you primarily expect to seek counsel from? The majority said, if I have a concern, I'm going to my faculty member or my instructor. And then of course, when I hit my mouse button here, I don't think you're going to be surprised to see the jump there from parents and family members. And so again, if a student has an academic related issue or concern in their fall semester, they're going to primarily their parents and family members. And so how can we, again, work together to make sure we're supporting our students through this time? So let's talk about what you need to know now. So I want to throw some important dates at you, some important time frames. So it kind of puts you in the mindset of where your student is at right now from an academic and calendar standpoint. And then Siobhan's going to come in and talk about it from an emotional and perhaps mental standpoint as well. So first, we are now in week 6. All righty. So again, we have 16-week fall semesters. Now, again, some of your students may be in 7-week sessions, first 7 weeks, 7 weeks. But really, when we look at a full semester, we're looking at this full 16 weeks. And so we are now in the middle of week 6. So midterms, which just nearly about every first-year student will participate in for each of their courses, are in 2 weeks. So the way to think of these midterms is it's pretty much a pretty good comprehensive exam, or it could be a paper of some sort of just giving the students a snapshot of where they will be at kind of halfway through the semester. Now, again, most of the students' courses have already had papers or assignments or maybe even earlier tests, but all students will be participating in some type of midterm, specifically first-year students. Now, what's important to note is not only are they taking those midterms, but by October 14th, by 9 a.m., it's usually, for the most part, most faculty get it in much ahead of that date, is every first-year student will have a midterm grade for each course. So we actually have a policy in place that every first-year student will know how they're doing in terms of a midterm assessment, and they'll be able to find those grades in their Canvas sites. All right, so all grades will be in Canvas again by October 14th at 9 a.m. So it's really, really important then to kind of have an understanding of this because, again, your students right now should be prepping for midterms. Obviously, we don't want students waiting to the last minute. We know they may have some other assignments or some other readings taking place right now, but now is the time where they should be really buckling down to say, okay, next week and the week after, I'm going to be in the middle of midterms before I hit fall break. And so we obviously want to set some good study patterns ahead of time so that they're ready to go. And so, again, if they're in 3, 4, 5 courses, they're not trying to cram all those in the day before. So it just kind of gives you an idea of what to expect from them. Maybe you're going to see some stress levels kind of kick into high gear, maybe see some energy drinks and more caffeine being consumed. And a lot of that's going to be around because this is the time of year when they're going to be really hitting the books very hard for these midterms. From another standpoint is it's important to understand that the last day to drop a course with a W, which is a withdrawal, is on 10/26. So essentially they're going to have grades in Canvas. They're going to kind of get a good sense of where they're at in that course by 10/14. And about 10 to 12 days later on 10/26, they're going to be able to drop their course with a full W, meaning that if they're really struggling in a class, let's say in their midterm, let's say they're in their Stats 205, just using that as an example. If they're in their Stats 205 course, they're in a D or an F, they're meeting with their faculty members, and the faculty member is saying, to do this, you need to catch up. These are the types of things you're missing, or these are the types of assignments and subset of questions you really need to be honing in on. Or maybe even something personal's come up where they're like, you know what, there's too much going on. I'm juggling way too many difficult classes at this time. To drop it with a W so that it doesn't impact their overall final grade with a W is 1026. If it's after that and they try to drop a class, they're going to be held to whatever grade they get in that class. So again, that could be your D or an F. And if your students are on scholarship or financial aid, you obviously understand the impact that may have on their GPA requirements for that aid or that scholarship. So it's important to know that. So again, the reason we put this up, this is a good time that, and we're going to get to this near the end, to have just a gut check with your student and just say, okay, how are we doing? What are your grades? How are we doing? Do we think we need to drop a W? Do you need to go in and talk to an advisor? Is this the right decision we need to make? You want to have those conversations earlier on so they have time to have those conversations with their advisor rather than waiting to the last minute and then they maybe make that decision very late in the game. So again, just some dates to know and important things to know around specifically dates around grades. I also want to talk real quick about priority registration. Again, let's see. Well, today is the 23rd, so we're just about a month away from when students can go in and start registering for spring classes. The reason we highlight this is because, as you can imagine, if you've got about 14 to 15,000 students going in to meet with their advisor to get ready for spring advisory registration, those appointments are going to fill up fast. And as you can imagine, as 15,000 students go in to start registering starting on October 29th and leading into those next 10 or 12 days, those classes fill up very quickly. And students who plan ahead and are able to meet with their advisor and say, okay, these are the courses I know I need, then they can go in when it's their time and can go in and start registering for those classes. We have found, and we understand, students want to wait till the end of the semester, or they want to see how they're going to do on a course before they register for classes. What we have found then is students will go in and those classes will be filled up, especially if they're in a major that has a very specific sequence, or in a major that has a lot of competitive classes in terms of a lot of students trying to get into those seats. And so it's really, really important. We strongly encourage students to start meeting with their advisors now. They should have already started to receive some emails from their advisors about going in and scheduling that appointment. Even if they want to wait a little bit, it's important to go in and start filling those courses in their registration carts so they know what courses they need. Because to be very honest, advisors will be meeting with students literally all the way through until winter break. Advisors will tell you they meet with students like that Friday before winter break hits, because students are coming in, making adjustments. And so those times fill up really quickly. So again, as you're talking with your student, not only about grades and kind of checking in, strongly encourage them to check their emails and make an appointment with their academic advisor, because the academic advisor is not only going to talk to them about their spring courses and what they can take, they're also checking in to say, how are you doing in courses? How are you doing financially? How are you doing just juggling everything? And they're also going to have conversations as we're in this new Zoom world. How are you managing classes that are on campus and in person compared to those that are like on Zoom or online. And if a student kind of discloses something like, hey, I'm really struggling in this course, the advisor then can help them make that connection with a faculty member or with Learning Plus tutoring of the Writing Center. So again, we've got the resources on campus to help students, but as I tell students, we can't help you unless we know what you need help with. So again, opening this dialogue with your student helps to uncover some of that so we can make those connections on campus. So why is this all important? Again, I covered this. To register for spring classes, especially for first-year students, it is required that they meet with their academic advisor. So they cannot actually go in and start registering for courses or filling their registration card up until they meet with an advisor, because they will have a hold. And then once they meet with that advisor after that meeting, the hold's removed, and then they're able to go in and register so that they're ready to go on the day they're able to register. And again, as I shared, this is a great time for your students to check in. It's that additional resource for those students to have that open conversation. And if an advisor hears something or a student shares like, hey, I really need help with this, or I need help with either time management or balancing a budget, we have the resources on campus to make sure we make that connection for the student. And so with that, I think it's a great segue to turn it over to Siobhan. Siobhan's going to have a conversation. We're not going to have any slides. This is going to be a conversation she's going to be able to have. And again, if you have questions as Siobhan's talking, I'll be able to monitor chat to bring that to Siobhan's attention so she can maybe elaborate on a point. But with that, I'll turn it over to Siobhan, who's going to go for about 15 or 20 minutes. I'll close with a slide, and then we'll open it up to broader questions from the group. Siobhan?
All right, thank you. So, like I mentioned before, I'm with Health Counseling and Student Wellness. And just to give you a quick rundown of who we are and what we do. So we have health side and we have counseling side. On our health side, we have a nurse practitioner and 2 nurses. Students can come in, make an appointment, see a nurse for free. It doesn't cost anything. Nurse practitioner functions like a doctor's office. On the counseling side, we have 7 full-time therapists, and we have a psychologist on staff, and we also now have 4 student interns, 1 doctoral training student, psychologist, and 3 master's level training clinicians. So we have a lot of staff available to students. And this year we are seeing a lot of students coming for services because, as you already know, we are living in unprecedented times. There is a lot going on in the world. It's not just the pandemic. That may have been the thing that started this whole process, but we have, racial injustice. We have natural disasters going on all over the country that are preventing people from traveling, maybe visiting family. And all of this is now on top of all these students who lost their graduation, lost their prom, lost a lot of the traditional milestones that they should have reached. And now they're coming to school, coming to a campus that they had maybe an idea in mind of what they were hoping to expect, and perhaps it's not what they thought. So they're going through a whole spectrum of emotions. And so my advice as parents or guardians is have those conversations, not just say, school going okay, because if you get the yes, no answer, they're going to shut down. But it's like, hey, tell me what it was like today. Tell me what your favorite class is. Tell me one teacher that you really feel like you're connecting to, or tell me about some of the opportunities to engage, in activities on campus. Can you tell me if you've been involved, or are you interested in anything? Just to get the conversation started. We understand as clinicians that mental health is still a big issue in a lot of families and a lot of cultures. I myself, growing up in Ireland, it was not something you talked about. A priest, would probably just bless it away and hope for the best. But we understand that talking about our mental health is important. It's important to be able to have those conversations, and we need to reduce the stigma. Luckily, each generation that comes in is, more and more aware of their own mental health and their own emotions, and they're connecting with services. So we are definitely grateful for that. So what are some of your students experiencing? Well, like I said, it's going to be a spectrum of emotions, from, anxiety about being a freshman to happiness about being out of home, maybe being on a college campus, although it might feel a little odd being in the dorms and not having a full campus to connect with. But they're maybe feeling some sadness that they're not able to be in person. They're feeling maybe some anxiety about, wanting to do well in classes, wanting to make parents proud. And so they're feeling so many different emotions that sometimes they may shut down. So, you know your kids better than anybody else. So I always say, watch for the nonverbals. Those would be the things that you're looking for, the body language. If you're noticing that maybe they're not checking in as often, if you're noticing that they look tired, or they're avoiding, they're isolating, they're shutting down, notice the things about your child that makes them aware of what could possibly be going on. And just to know, like I said, have those frank conversations, because as Ryan said, we can't help students unless they tell us what it is they need. And we want to help, and we have an abundance of resources on our campus to help students. But a lot of times students wait until the last minute, or they didn't know where to turn to for help. So that's where you, as guardians and parents, are very important. You're crucial that you can remind them of these services and make them aware of what's going on. So as far as everything they're experiencing, whether it be from happiness that they're in college to all the way that they're having depression or anxiety or feeling overwhelmed, maybe there's a mixture of in-person classes and remote learning classes, and they're struggling to try and manage it all. My advice is always communicate. Faculty, especially I can say for our faculty at NKU, have spent the entire summer preparing for this event. So we want to make sure that all our students feel supported and engaged and connected. And so faculty are waiting for students to reach out to them and say, hey, I'm struggling, or I missed your class, or I missed an assignment. What can we do? And just reaching out ahead of time is going to be the most important part. So what can you notice about your son or daughter if maybe they have anxiety or depression? What would it look like? There's no, I would say, quick checklist that you can look at. Every kid is different. Depression may come out in anger in some people. It may come out as crying in other people. It could be an avoidance. We would see with like student athletes, depression in student athletes looks very different than non-athletes. Student athletes will probably throw themselves into more workouts, going to more competitive levels, and that's their way of trying to cope with these symptoms. So anxiety and depression, knowing the symptoms, basically is knowing your kid, knowing what is off, what is different. Of course, some of the typical symptoms will be they're avoiding the homework, they're avoiding conversations, they're shutting down. They might be saying that they're tired, or they're confused about things, or they're just not sure about college. They will start dropping hints about things. And it's okay to say, hey, you think maybe you're having some anxiety, or do you think maybe you're struggling with depression? Because a lot of students right now certainly are struggling with depression and anxiety because of everything that is going on in the world. And of course, like I said, everything they have experienced, all the losses they've had to go through. So where do you go for help, and how do you connect with it? As parents and guardians, as you know, once they turn 18, HIPAA law comes into effect. So we required that the students call and make an appointment because they are now an adult in the eyes of HIPAA law. We cannot converse with you. However, if you call and say, I have an 18-year-old son, I'm concerned about, I need to try and get them in some help, we're going to listen to you. We can talk to you about what the steps are, how to connect, maybe resources in the community. If we're not able to help, we can do that. We just can't give you information about your particular child once they engage. Or if you call and say, hey, I told my son to call, did he make an appointment? We cannot confirm or deny, but we can try to work with you as best we can. But encouraging your student to call the office. We are in the University Center. Our information is on our website. I can give you our phone number, 859-572-5650. And if Ryan would put that in the chat, maybe, or Bretta, that would be great. And so you can call our office Monday through Friday and make an appointment. We are currently doing telehealth. We are doing video, and we are doing phone service, and we are doing a few in person. And so we have availability for anybody to connect if they need to. Counseling sessions are $15 a session. However, we encourage students that if finances are a difficulty, please don't let that stop you from calling us. Please call us. We have a variety of ways that we can support students that need no fee, and that's okay. So like I said, if $15 is an issue, please tell your student to go ahead and call us. We also have after hours and weekend crisis availability. So if your student is struggling in their dorm and it's at night and they're calling you and you don't know what to do to help, please encourage them to call our after hours number. So the number is 859-572-7777. That is our police department. So I remind students, please don't freak out when you hear NKU police. It's the dispatcher that answers all our after hours calls, and they then relay the calls to us. The student just has to say, I need to speak to the on-call therapist, and they will be put through. Somebody is always available, whether it be during office hours, after office hours, or on weekends. There is always a therapist available to listen, to consult, and to refer to services or whatever may be needed. So I think as far as the resources, we have a lot of services in our office. In our building alone, in the University Center, there's a lot of services. We have UCAP, University Connect and Persist, the TRIO program, all of these are designed to help students be successful with academics and overall. You know, nationally, if you're looking for how do I help support my student, my college student, there are great resources on Mental Health America. If you look up Mental Health America / college students, they give you all kinds of resources from how to handle homesickness, adjusting to college life, how to connect with resources in your state. All of the different services are available. But mainly just calling us if you need to. We're always here to answer questions, and we understand this is a difficult time. There is no handbook for what we are currently experiencing in the world right now. So we are just all trying to make sure that we are taking care of one another, and especially our freshmen. We want them to be successful, and so we encourage them communicate, reach out, and let us help you.
Excellent, Siobhan. So there was a question that did come through, and then I'll address the one about contacting the advisors. But you did mention, if you could clarify, is there a fee for counseling services? And if so, why is there a charge for a student to meet with a counselor?
Okay, so with our services, just like on the health side, we have service for fees and not fees. So the nurse, there is no fee at all, just to have an initial visit. With the nurse practitioner, it's like a doctor's office, and so we do charge. We believe that it's important to charge to understand with students that they're paying for a service. Students have actually asked that there was a charge so that they felt like there was respect for the service, that it wasn't just something they were getting handed. So we charge $15, very, very minimal compared to what you would pay in the community. As I said, if it is an issue, we tell students, please let us know. We have a lot of options. We can do no fee if necessary. Fee is never should be a barrier to coming into counseling. So it is there, but like I said, that's not the main reason that we are doing the services.
Great. Thank you, Siobhan. And another question came in about, is it okay for parents to contact advisors if students are having issues and need additional help, if the student doesn't feel comfortable contacting the advisor themselves? So there's a couple things related to this. So the first one is, if you were to pick up a phone and call or email your academic advisor, they're going to be very limited in the kind of the information they can either share or the connection that they can make directly back to the student. And the reason for that is they're protected by FERPA. Now, again, if a parent has a FERPA release and that has been on file and the advisor has access to that, that does open a little bit more doors towards the sharing of that information. But what I would strongly encourage is, if your student you don't believe is either making contact with the advisor or they're hesitant to contact the advisor, perhaps very introverted and just don't feel comfortable making that contact, what I would strongly encourage, and Britta, if you wouldn't mind, we'll make sure through this conversation, we'll put it in the chat. The first place I would actually contact would be University Connect and Persist. They are our early alert department on campus, and what they do is they can take any calls from students, parents, family members, and then they work directly with the advisor, and then a coordinated care approach comes into play where multiple people are reaching out to work with the student, either through phone calls, Zoom meetings, or emails, to make sure that that connection takes place. And then there's always follow-up back from there. So that's what I would strongly encourage, rather than going directly to the academic advisor, because with UCAP, then we can kind of have a team then together to really work to make sure we're supporting the student. So thank you so much, Britta. That's the telephone number, and that'll go straight to the main line. And we always have someone at the front desk to answer, or it'll go to one of the coordinators in there. All righty. Let's see. So how's the remodel coming along with the residence hall, specifically Norse Hall, expected completion date? So I will be very transparent. We do not oversee housing, and I do not have that specific information, but that is something that at the back end of this conversation, we will have this question in the chat and we can respond to it and then get it back out to everybody. I just unfortunately do not oversee housing, and so do not know the details of how the remodel's coming, the dates for completion, or even when the final date is estimated for the new residence hall that's coming online next year. So, but again, we will make sure we follow up with that. Are there any other questions for Siobhan at this time? If not, we can then maybe we'll go to another slide and then open it up broadly for some broad questions. And we'll give it a minute or so as people may be writing stuff in the chat. And again, I'll also highlight, Siobhan mentioned the University Center, which is where health counseling and student wellness is located on the 4th floor. What we strongly encourage, what we purposefully did is we moved a lot, if not the majority of the service departments on campus within the University Center and within the One Stop, which is right next to the University Center. So we always tell students if they have a question, all they got to do is walk into that building, the University Center right next to the Student Union. There's 2 help desks. All they got to do is go up to that help desk. The question can be as broad as what's your recommendation for lunch today? Or if they have a very specific question about a service that's either in the department or they just don't even know where an office is. Those help desks are purposefully there to help direct students. The idea was we didn't want students walking across campus trying to find a department. If they went into one central building, in all likelihood, that resource is in that building. And if not, we'll be able to get them across campus to where they need to be. So again, the University Center help desk are super helpful with helping your students answer any questions or need to get them where they need to get. When will the format for next semester's classes be determined? Hybrid, face-to-face, online? Those are actually ongoing conversations that take place right now. I think the ultimate goal, but do not quote me on this, is sometime as we're heading into the registration period, they want to be start to align what that starts to look like. Again, that decision, if you have had the opportunity to listen to President Videa, especially during his summer sessions with parents, talk a little bit about this. It really is being guided by his work with the state, with the CDC, and with the health organizations that all sit on part of that COVID-19 resource team. So again, the president has a full team of not only people on campus, but off campus and all the health officials from St. E's and others to help him make, and as well as cabinet to help make that decision, again, for the safety of our students and of campus. So I know those are ongoing decisions. They're weighing the pros and cons and kind of weighing everything, but a formal decision has not taken place just yet, but I would expect it within the coming weeks for sure. Let's see, any COVID cases at NKU? Britta, do you mind while we're maybe answering the next question, because we can reference the, there's a public facing COVID page that actually shows you the number of reported cases on campus. I unfortunately don't know where we're at to date, but we will go ahead and pull that up. Again, that is a forward facing public website where you can go in and see all those that have been reported. Thank you, Britta. So if anybody just wants to click on that link, that'll pull up the statistics for where we are currently at. So if we take a peek here, and again, it's going slow since we're hosting the Zoom there. There, you can actually see again the number of active COVID cases, both within the reported cases within Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky, the breakdown by age, the rolling 7-day average per daily cases for 100,000, again, similar to the numbers you're seeing in the news. They're following those same guidelines, and some graphs and some other things that you can see there to get a sense of the overall and where we are at within the region. So hopefully that would provide some additional information for you. Thank you, Britta, for posting that. All righty.
There was a question there that you skipped over. Where is the University Center located?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you. Great question. That is literally in the heart of campus. So if there's 2 buildings that students are very familiar with, the first is the Student Union, which is quite literally in the heart of campus. And so if you've got the Student Union and you've got the Administrative Center, which is the tallest building on campus with the clock tower. So if you tell them to look either for the clock tower, the tallest building, or the Student Union, you see the University Center is literally right in the middle of that. It hugs both each, and they're actually connected both with either a bridge or a tunnel to each of those buildings. So it's right in the heart of campus between the Student Union and the Administrative Center. Thank you, Siobhan. I did not see that.
It's also the building where the bookstore is.
Yeah, it's a great, that's another great,
That's absolutely usually a good landmark because a lot of students are getting their books or buying some spiritware. So we are the same building.
Absolutely. Excellent. All right, I'm going to go ahead and I'll go to this next share screen and then I'll come back to chat. But I want to make sure we do one more slide here. As I check the time, we're making perfect time. Excellent. All righty. So again, what can you do now? So a strong recommendation is, as Siobhan was sharing, you know your student better than anybody else. And with fall break coming up here, they get an extended break after midterms. we strongly, strongly encourage you to take that opportunity to just sit down or just check in with your student to say, how are things going? I think you would be genuinely surprised. Sometimes, you may have the student that's very open, everything. They open up like a book to you and everything going on in their lives. Others may have that student that is just so independent, just kind of keeps to themselves. But you'd be surprised that just the simplest little, hey, how are things going? It just opens that crack in that door, and you'll be able to kind of hear how things are going in school. And so the questions to really ask, because we get this a lot from parents. Okay, that's a great idea, but what should we be asking? First thing is how are classes going? Just similar to high school. Again, in high school, I joke all the time. On the little device right here, every time, my son's a senior in high school, every time a grade is posted in Canvas, I get an email to let me know. Like, that's how connected we were in high school. And so it's hard for parents when they go off to college and all of a sudden you don't have access to Canvas or know how they're doing. But keeping up that conversation, you'll be surprised when a student does well on a test and wants to share it with you. Or if a student really is struggling, or you're noticing some of those patterns that Siobhan said, that question can open up a lot. And then that'll kind of help you manage and try to figure out how you as a parent or family member can either support, or how we can make that connection on campus to make sure they're getting the support they need, especially if it's within that academic realm. Another one is, I know, again, we're virtual so much right now, but are you getting involved on campus? Are they just going to their Zoom meetings or their classes and then logging back off and getting on their phone or watching Netflix? Or are they going to campus for their class and then just leaving? Have they made any connections with students or student organizations, student groups? If they're interested in, a religious affiliated group, because they're still doing a number of those things on campus, or if there's just a student organization or fraternity or sorority that they're interested in, and maybe rush isn't taking place right now, but still making that connection so that they're still communicating with some upperclassmen. Those connections go a very, very long way. And so we know we're in a different environment this fall, but it's still important. We want students to make some type of connection on campus, either with a staff member, faculty member, but in particular with students. I was in the student union the other day when I was on campus. I was walking through to grab something to eat real quick, and you'd be surprised at how many students are socially distancing within the student union, sitting at the tables that are available to them, all having masks on except when they're eating, and they're still meeting and talking with one another. And so those connections are still there in a safe and socially distanced environment. Are you meeting people? Again, even if they're in their Zoom rooms, for many of you, you may be familiar with some of the presentations I've done because of Summer Spark. Students in Summer Spark, which is our summer program that took place before the fall semester, we were so surprised and so happy at how many connections students made just even in that virtual environment. As I'm sending emails to the Summer Spark students, or they come into my office just to check in and see how things are going, I'm just so pleased to hear that those connections they're making even in their Zoom classrooms, where they're like, hey, just ping me, and then they have study groups together, or they're just kind of checking in with one another or texting with one another, watching a movie on Disney Plus together. Those connections, as you know, in any type of social environment we're in, really make that connection back to the course or back to the university. So we want to make sure that they're meeting students. Again, just simply, do you need help with anything? The FAFSA is going to be coming up that you're going to need to fill out again. Do you need help with that? Do we need to make sure we've got the tax returns aligned up for the next time we need to submit FAFSA? How are things going with your scholarship? Are you still online with the number of credit hours you need, or the minimum GPA you need for your scholarship? Just any type of help whatsoever. I know we had a staff member whose student was doing fantastic in school, and met with their advisor, had everything ready to go for registering for spring semester. And we were getting near Thanksgiving, and I noticed on this list that the student hadn't registered for classes yet. And so we reached out to that student of the staff member, and she was like, oh my goodness, I just had it in my registration card. I didn't even know how to submit it. And so we walked her through how to submit those courses that are in her cart so that she was registered for the spring. So again, just the simplest little things. Do you need help with? Those things can feel like a snowball to a student when you've got 3 or 4 of them taking place at the same time. Something I do all the time with my kids, it drives them nuts, but tell me something fun you did it today in school. That opens so many doors to all of a sudden I'm hearing about, oh, so-and-so said this and so-and-so said this. And okay, now we can start working through what that is. So that something fun can often lead into something else. And as a parent who's so invested in their student's success, You also probably want to hear what their experiences are and how things are going. So that conversation can open up so many doors. And so if you're doing that during fall break, they're going to be coming back home, or maybe they're already home for Thanksgiving break. Strongly encourage you to continue those conversations. It may not have to be at the Thanksgiving Day table, but at the same time, if they're around for those 4 days, just as they're sitting there watching TV, just say, hey, tell me something fun that happened so far, or tell me something you've been struggling with, and how can I help? Those little things, those little checkpoints go a very, very long way. And I'm going to give you some examples of that. We have heard from students time and time again, when the students walk across the stage, right before they walk across the stage to shake the hand with the president as they're getting their degree at graduation, they get a survey. And so on that survey, one of the questions we asked was, what was the primary motivator that got you to where you're at today, that you're walking across getting your college degree? You'll see it's the faculty members. It may have been a scholarship. It may have been someone they worked with or their peers. But the overall majority, and we're talking high percentages, said it was their family and their family members and their parents who really were the driving force and support all through these 4 years. And so we've heard time and time again, those words of encouragement, those small little nudges go a long way. Every so often, just sending a text message to your student, just saying like, hey, how was Stats 205 today? Hey, we're having dinners at 5 tonight. What would you like for dinner? Just those small little things, those little minor connections, as I keep repeating over and over, really go a long way with your student. And we keep repeating this because we hear it from our students. And so those small little nudges really do have an impact on your student. I'll give you an example personally that worked for me. Getting emotional. My mother just recently passed. And so I'm going to tell you a story about something my mother did during college for me. So I went away for college from Cincinnati. So for many of you, this is going to resonate for you because if you were like me, I thought Grader's, and I still think Grader's not only has the best ice cream, but has the best baked goods. And so at a time when Grader's made their red licorice, my mom, there was always red licorice around the house growing up because myself and my brother were so addicted to it. And so mom always made sure we had red licorice laying around. So I went away to college, and I don't want to say I was homesick, but it was difficult in terms of like, you're on your own, you're independent, this is fantastic. But I was missing some of those small little things from home. And so once a month, if not twice a month, it was almost like on a scheduled time, I would get this small little box in the mail. And I would always have in that, I had Grader's cookies, Grader's red licorice, and a $20 bill, and always a little joke in that $10 bill or $20 bill that said, I'm sure you're sick of eating in the residence halls. Go out and treat yourself to something nice. And just those things in that box just went such a long way for me. It just made that connection. It made me realize, like, even when I'm away and I'm not there, mom was always checking in on me. And so I strongly encourage you, care packages, or if your student's a commuter student, a simple little note, a simple little thing sitting on their car seat so that when they get in there in the morning and they look over to put their book bag down, maybe their favorite treat or a small note from you, those just light up your students so much because it makes them realize, oh, even in this moment, as mom and dad are trying to juggle, family members are trying to juggle everything going on in their life, especially in these times that we're going through now, that small little thing just will bring a smile to your student's face. And as you can imagine, that's just going to set them up for the rest of that day and hopefully for the rest of that week, just in that mood of just, I feel supported. I feel like there's a whole bunch of people around me making sure I'm doing well. And again, talk with your student about ... about anything. Again, just that small little conversation, that small little text. If you know they've got midterms coming up, a simple little text. Hey, we're thinking about you. Good luck next week on midterms. Like, that's just that little spark is what's going to start it. So again, parents ask us, what are some things for encouragement, small little nudges? Hopefully these are some, and I'm sure you've done many others. And if you want to share some of the things that maybe you've done, if you've had some of their older siblings or other children or other family members go through college and some things you want to share in the chat for other parents, that's fantastic as well. So with that, I'm going to exit out of this because we're going to go to questions. All righty. So we're back here. I'm going to scroll up to make sure I get to where we left off. All righty. So what are the dates for fall break? Again, I think if I'm not mistaken, I'd have to go look back, but it was the 11th and 12th, if I'm not mistaken, for fall break. I think that's what I recall from my slide. So again, yeah, the 11th and 12th, it's always the week after midterms. So they have midterms. We like to give them a little bit of a break because they have been cramming for 2 weeks for sure.
Ryan, this is the 12th and 13th.
Oh, 12th and 13th. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. With the pandemic, what are some good ideas for activities that parents can suggest that they have a general appeal for? So I'm assuming you mean with connections back to the university or just something in general. Some of the things that have been working really well that I've heard about, because one of them took me by surprise, but you know, if it's working and students are loving it, strongly encourage your students to check out both the NKU social media as well as the student engagement. So the Office of Student Engagement also has a social media page as well as a website where they're posting activities across campus or virtually. So they do, for example, virtual game night. Supposedly the biggest thing this year that was well attended with a few hundred students was virtual bingo night. So they did virtual bingo night with this this program they had online. I know they do movie nights where everybody watches the same movie on Disney Plus at the same time and everybody's commenting on it. And so there were certain things like that. If you just find those connections through the Office of Student Engagement or just follow the social media page, they'll be sharing those things. So those connections can go a long way. Strongly encourage your student, again, to not only connect with student engagement, but if they go to the NKU homepage, you go to the NKU homepage and go to quick links. You know what? I'm going to share my screen and show you. Let's see here. There we go. All right. So if we go to nku.edu, up here, and I've got to move my little box there, but here are the quick links. Here are the quick links on the top right. If you click on this, right here's My Engagement. If you click on My Engagement or have your student click on the My Engagement, they'll be able to log in and view all the student engagement activities taking place on campus from an events, as well as all the organizations they can make a connection with. They have the rolling scrolling, what's happening now, as well as some featured organizations.
Hey, Ryan, we still see what can you do. We still see your PowerPoint.
Oh, no, darn. Okay, shoot.
I was trying to speak in, but I didn't want to interrupt.
No, please interrupt me. I don't know what happened there. Let's try this again. I'm so sorry. It only gives me that PowerPoint presentation. It says it was sharing that. Okay. Huh. Well, that's funny.
May I make a suggestion?
Sure, please.
Open up your web browser before you share it.
Okay, let's do that. Let me close out of the web browser. I opened it. Go under Zoom again. Yep, it's still giving me that icon, so we're going to try it again.
Oh, wow.
That's all right. Let's see here. So it says it's invalid now. Isn't that fun? I don't even see my desktop on this. Usually I have the desktop where I can just go through the desktop and connect. Okay.
All right. I can maybe share mine because I have it pulled up on my desktop.
Oh, that'd be great. Absolutely.
Let me see. Oops.
And if not, Britta might be able to too. I'm so sorry, everybody. Yeah, I see it on my screen. It allows me to hit Chrome, but I guess it was still pulling up the presentation.
It's definitely been a learning curve on everyone's side here.
Well, it's so funny. I feel like I've become a Zoom expert with how many of these I've done, but yet we're still, oh, perfect. Siobhan,
Are we seeing it?
Awesome,
Okay.
we are.
So you want me to hit on the...
Yeah, if we click on quick links.
Where do we go?
Yep, you just got to scroll back up. It did that to me too. So if we click on quick links there, this is again on the nku.edu website. You click on My Engagement. So this will take you to the My Engagement portal. And what you can see along the top here is it's warming up. And Siobhan will hover with her mouse, but you can see across the top the organizations, and no need to click on this because they'll take them to that page. But if you click on the organizations, that lists all the organizations. They can do a search. So there's everything in there from the Dungeons and Dragons Club to the, I think there's still the Quidditch Club in there where students were doing Quidditch on campus. And then you can also look at events, and it's a calendar of what's coming up. So there's another one as well. If you just scroll down just a little bit there, Siobhan, you can see what's happening now. So it gives you kind of what's been going on in some upcoming events, as well as some featured organizations. So again, students can play around here and see kind of how to make connections. There's the most recent tweets that have gone out to share with students. So again, this is a really good website for students to make that connection and see what's going on across campus, even in this virtual environment. All righty. Thank you, Siobhan, for sharing.
Oh, I'll stop sharing.
No, you're good. All righty, so let's see here. Are the residence halls or RAs organizing meet and greets or other fun things for the respective areas? Oh, wow. I would assume so, but Siobhan, do you maybe know of any other
I'm
link to
not
that?
so familiar, but we do a lot of consultations with housing, and RAs are always required to do programming for their residents. And so I believe they're always trying to come up with creative ways. We are limited as far as normally we would all be out in the plaza or we would be in rooms in the dorms doing activities, but we're limited on the amount of personal connection. But I know the RAs have been putting together like treat bags to hand out, putting notes up on doors, trying to do, creative ways to just connect students with one another, and also just let them know that the RAs are available.
Yep. Let's see here. So to clarify, are grades posted as given or just as midterms? So what they will do is they'll, in Canvas, not only are all the grades that they would get in a normal course, an assignment here, a writing paper here, they will give them basically, if the way to think about it is at midterms, if the course ended today, here's what your grade would be based off where we're currently at today. So it's almost like if you wanted to think of it, a pseudo final. So the students will get an understanding, okay, I've got a B in this course. Now I've got another 8 weeks to try to get that B up to an A. And then Canvas will go in, and then obviously it'll be in their SAP will be their final grade. But their midterm is not like considered a posted, it's nowhere stored really. It's just a check for a student to say, here's where I'm at as of midterm. All righty. Let's see. Is the health center going to open? Siobhan, do you want to talk about the health center being open?
So are we talking about the campus rec center, or are we talking about our health office?
Why don't we do both? Both would be good.
So our office in health counseling and student wellness, so it says the health center open basketball. Oh, okay.
That's campus.
So it's not our office, it's the campus. So campus rec is open. They opened on August 3rd and the pool opened on August 10th. There are still some things that are closed. So of course, basketball is currently still not happening in the courts, but I go to the campus rec and take my kids there several times a week. So you can go in, work out on the treadmills, the Nautilus equipment. Staff are available to help. They are doing all their classes on Zoom. So yoga, Zumba classes, any kind of exercise classes, all of those are available. But as of right now, the courts are still closed because some of them are being used for classrooms. So, and I haven't heard of when it is opening even further, but you can always reach out to campus rec staff. I'm sure they'd be happy to help.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Siobhan. All right, Tiffany, what we're going to do for your question asking about Thanksgiving break and what takes place after Thanksgiving break, we want to make sure we'll circle back with the Director of Housing to get a full response on what students can and cannot do after fall break. So we'll want to make sure we're thorough with that question. But essentially after Thanksgiving break, all classes will go virtual, but the residence halls are maybe some different standards for that. So we will definitely circle back with that, and Britta will then be sending out a thorough answer to that so that we are, you know this well ahead of time so you can prepare for that. Again, I just don't know the full details and want to make sure we're as thorough as possible on that question. All righty. Let's see. Will there be an NKU Division I men's basketball season? I do not oversee athletics. But from what I've heard, not from campus, so I want to make sure I'm very clear. I've not heard from campus, but it sounds like the NCAA is trying to do some type of basketball season, regardless if it's postponed or pushed into the spring. But again, those are just conversations. I cannot speak for athletics, and I am in no way in any of those conversations on campus if there's going to be basketball. But I know just from an NCAA standpoint, not an NKU, but an NCAA, they are evaluating all options right now for what a season could potentially look like. Again, pending everything kind of going on and kind of what will come up in the coming months. If your student did not live on campus this year as a first-year student, will they be able to live on campus next year? Will there be rooms? What if they decide to live on campus for spring 2021? Those are fantastic questions. What I would say is considering we still don't know exactly what fall is going to look like in terms of in-person versus virtual, it's hard for me to say exactly what we're going to be doing for fall. I think the goal is to get back to as much of capacity as possible. We will have a new residence hall online, and I believe, some additional renovations are taking place. And so obviously the goal is to have as many students on campus living, but of course we've got to do it within the restrictions and the guidelines that we have working with the state, working with the CDC and our health officials from St. E's and elsewhere. So again, it's still a little too early to decide that and to really even make a full decision on what that's going to look like. But those, of course, will be shared as those decisions are made, both from the student's standpoint. The students get all those emails from COVID-19 to their nku.edu web address, not web address, but their email address. They get those. And so we would encourage students to check those email addresses often. As we always say with students, always check your NKU email. It's the official communication for us to your student. And so those announcements would be coming from the COVID team through email, as well as posted on the websites that you saw earlier. Will students return to campus since it's all virtual? Again, we're going to answer that question. Tiffany had a similar question about if everything's virtual, how does housing look like after the fall break, or I'm sorry, after the Thanksgiving break? I just want to make sure, since housing is not something that I specifically oversee, and it's actually not even in our division, I want to make sure we get a thorough answer. And I know working with David, he'll make sure we'll get a full write-up for you. I know it may even be on the housing FAQ page, but we just want to make sure with that question, we get as thorough a response as possible. So when we send out these slides and we send out this recording or the questions, answers to these questions, we will make sure that is in there with a thorough response, and I'm sure a link back to the housing website. All right, I know we still got a couple minutes left. Just maybe as a plug, so we started doing these Stronger Together presentations last year. And so we did a couple in the fall and we did another one in the spring. We are planning another one in the coming weeks. It'll probably be after fall break as we're heading into registration season. And what we'll do is it'll be myself again, helping guide the conversation. But a lot of that next meeting is going to be your opportunity to meet and talk with an academic advisor. And so we'll have an academic advisor on the call who will be able to answer any questions that you have about advising. They will share exactly what your student will be going through that advising appointment, as well as how that fall advising appointment impacts the spring advising appointment, and then the resources that each of the advising centers within the colleges have to support your student. So it's another popular session. So hopefully you'll be able to join us for another hour conversation, again, with an academic advisor. So if you have questions about what even some of those course look like, course sequencings, all those fun academic questions, we will have that academic advisor there to help address those. So I'll just say, any final questions before we turn it over to Britta, who's going to make one final announcement, an important announcement about our parent programs. How do we get our students to fill out FERPA? It is online on the University Registrar website. It will need to be printed off and signed, and then it's handed back into the University Registrar. So again, the University Registrar website, if you just Google NKU Registrar, it'll pull up, it'll be the first thing you'll see. And thank you, Britta. Britta's amazing. If you just go there, that's where the forms will be. You sign it out, and then it's, I believe you can hand it in electronically now too, but it has to be returned back to the registrar, which is the university official records housekeeping or housekeeper of records. And then from there, that will then allow you to, it'll be flagged within our systems so that all staff and faculty know that they can have some FERPA related questions and responses for you. So with that, Britta, I know
Ryan,
you are
sorry,
not only juggling everything behind the scenes.
Ryan, there was a
yes.
question there. It says, since students won't be able to use their entire meal plan due to the closure, will some of their plan roll over?
Yes, and so that's another great question. I'm 99% certain of my answer, but because I want to make sure we get a full response, we will follow up with that as well with with Andy Meeks, who oversees campus dining. But I'm even hesitant to say it because I just want to make sure we're 100% on that question. So we will definitely follow up with that. So with that, let's see, FERPA is filled out every semester. FERPA is, I believe, good for the entire 4 years, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, once FERPA is filled out, yeah, I think you're good. So, all righty. So with that, thank you, Britta. You just answered my question. So Britta, I'm going to turn it over to you while I take a sip of water to get my voice back.
All right. Thank you all for being here, and thanks to Siobhan and Ryan for the opportunity for families to come together. I want to talk to y'all just briefly about the Parent Advisory Board and their plan for the fall semester. So we do realize we won't be having any on-campus events So the Parent Advisory Board really wants to ramp up the activity on the NKU Parents Association Facebook page. So if you have not already liked that page and you are on Facebook, please head on over and like that. And starting next week, you're going to see a couple of engagement points each and every week to talk to you all as family members, to share pertinent information. It'll reiterate some of the information that you have heard this evening. But it'll also give you an opportunity to talk to other families in that space as well. So please make a point to like that page, and we hope to interact with you there.
Excellent, Britta. Thank you so much. Greatly appreciate it. With that, we pretty much adhered to that time. I know we started a minute late, so we're going to, I guess, end a minute late here. So be on the lookout. Britta will be sending out the next Stronger Together session. We hopefully will be able to see you, and hopefully you'll be able to join us. We do want to thank you. We know giving up an hour of your night away from your family is always tough, but we greatly appreciate that time. And again, the biggest thing we can stress is if you have questions, again, with that UCAP, or even just reach out to Britta, myself, or Siobhan, or even parents at nku.edu. We will make sure we do everything we can to get you a response or connect your students where they need to get connected. Because again, this is a partnership with you to make sure that we're able to support your student, again, stronger together. So with that, everybody enjoy your evening. Thank you again for joining us. Siobhan, thank you for joining us. Britta, thank you so much for leading this and setting everything up. And with that, take care, go Norse, and we'll see everybody soon. Thank you.